What we have been discussing is we want a tool or a mechanism which can give us the information about the time consumed by any algorithm. So basically, the first step which is to be performed is to count the step, but the outcome of that step count is usually a detailed equation which contains the polynomial functions. So it can be any constant function, linear function, quadratic function, cubic function, or any exponential function as well, or any polynomial function. To compare these kind of an equations is not that simple, because each of these having its own coefficients, and because it's an equation, it varies at different instance of an input, or it varies on a different values of a variable which it contains. So by looking at the equation, you cannot say that, okay, this is higher and this is lower. So basically you need a mechanism which can simplify these equations, and which can be easily comparable then. So for that we have the order of growth, or asymptotic notations it is also called, and there are 5 such notation, and first of them is big O notation. Now big O means it gives you the worst case scenario, it gives you the asymptotic upper bound for any given function. So if I say that my function equation is 2n square, then big O notation tells me that the worst case scenario of this particular equation is big O of n square. So that is basically, it gives you the upper bound of any function. It means that no matter what is the value of input at any point of time, this function value is always going to be less than this one. That is what it means. So at any instance of a time, this value will be always going to be less than. Obviously, you will have some point after which this is always true. Before that point, there may be a variations. There may be Fn is less than Cgn, Fn is greater than Cgn. It can be anything. But after this point, you are assured that your Cgn, that is this function, is always going to be greater than this. When you found this, then you can say that the time, the asymptotic notation for a given function, big O notation for a given function is big O of n square for value of C is equal to 2 and n0 is 0 in this case. We have also discussed the various examples, how to find the big O notation for any given function equation. So usually what we do, we try to replace the lower order term with the higher order term. So, and while we replace this, we always keep in mind that we want ultimately this kind of an equation. So we want Fn is less than or equal to Cgn, because once you get this Cgn, that is actually your big O notation for this Fn. So our interest is in finding out this kind of an equation. So for that, usually we do the replacement, and while doing the replacement, we keep in check that what should be the ideal value of n for these conditions to be always true. And we keep on replacing that lower order term with the higher order term. We keep on checking the value of n. Finally, when you get a single term over here, then you make sure that the coefficient of that single term will be your C value, and maximum of this n value will be your n0. So for this particular parameters, this is true that Fn is big O of n cube. However, it is not necessary that this is the only parameter over here. Remember, I can tell you in this example, 27n square plus 16n is less than or equal to 27n square plus, here we have simply replaced n with n square, and that's why this is always true, because obviously your square of something is always going to be higher than that number only if its a number is a positive one. So it means this is one case. Second case can be, instead of replacing this with 16n with 16n square, I can simply replace it with n square as well. So what I will say, 27n square plus n square. Now when this is true, then you have to identify what is that value of n for which 16n is less than n square or less than or equal to n square. What should be that value? Obviously, you need to go through some calculation. You need to run your calculator, and then you have to identify that for which value of n 16n is less than n square. If you take the value of n is equal to 1, then this is 16 and this is 1, so false. 2, this is 32 and 4, false. If you take 3, this is 48 and 9, so false. If you take 4, this is 64 and this is 16. 4 square is 16, so false. You take 5, that becomes 80. Here it is 25, 5 square. Then you take 6, is 96. Here it becomes 36, 6 square. Then you take 7, so it's 102. Then here you have 7 square, so it's 49. So like this, you will keep on adding the value. You will find some value of n for which 16n is less than n square. So you have to replace that value over here, and then you can say this equation is less than or equal to 27n square plus n square. That becomes 27 plus 1, 28n square. So for that case, your C is 28, but in that case, your N0 is going to change. It will be something beyond 1. So I hope you understood the concept. What I want to convey is that it is not necessary that this is the only pair for which you can say this. You can have another values of C and N0 as well. That is also possible. But the ultimate thing is, when you find this kind of an equation, the big O notation of this will be the highest order term in this equation. So here it will be n, here it will be n square, here it will be n cube, here it will be 2 raised to n, because these are the highest order term. So that was about the revision what we have done in the previous class. The reason I am repeating again, because that particular knowledge is going to help you to understand the subsequent notations. So the next notation in the sequence is big omega. Unlike big O notation, which was an asymptotic upper bound, here big omega notation is an asymptotic lower bound. Lower bound means that it always gives you the best case scenario. Remember, we have discussed these two scenarios, worst case and best case. If big O notation gives you the worst case scenario, then big omega gives you the best case scenario. What it means? It means that if you take this graph, it means that for a given value of fn, there exists a function gn. When it is multiplied by c, which is a constant, you can find some value of n, after which your fn is always going to be greater than or equal to cgn. Or in other terms, you can say your cgn is always going to be less than or equal to fn. And that's why we say that for a given function fn, this is a lower bound. Its value or the value of this will be always going to be less than this. Right? So same thing mentioned over here for a given function gn. You can say there exists a function, sorry, I think this should be fn, not gn. So for given function fn, you have some value of again, this is also not true. This should not be big O, it is big omega. I don't know why there is so much mistakes. So this is big omega. Fn is equal to big omega if there exists a positive constant c and n0 such that this is true. And what is that? Exactly inverse of what we had in big O. In big O, we have Fn over here and Cgn over here. In big omega, we have Cgn over here and Fn over here. So the big omega is an asymptotic lower bound. So you may argue that how to find it or how to derive it. Let's discuss some example. Okay. See this. You have been given some kind of a linear function. So it's 3n plus 2. Objective is you have been given this Fn. You want to find out Fn is greater than or equal to Cgn. Remember? So 3n plus 2 is given. You want to find out greater than or equal to some function over here. So obviously, like the previous case, we would like to remove or we would like to ignore the lower order term. Here we are interested in ignoring it. And mathematically it is more simple to compute the lower bound because it's very easy. 3n plus 2, you just remove this plus 2, because when you remove this 3n plus 2 from this 3n, it's always going to be greater than or equal to 3n. So simply ignore that plus 2, no need to check for anything else. And this is always true for any value of n greater than or equal to 1. Obviously it is true for every value of n. So because you found this condition, see, this is my Fn is greater than or equal to Cgn. Now that Gn is n here. So that's why we can say Fn is equal to big omega of n. What is the value of C? Its value is 3. What is the value of n0? Value is 1. If you go for the quadratic function, tan n square plus 4n plus 2, for any value of n greater than 1, this is true. You simply ignore this 4n plus 2. Even you ignore the coefficient of n square as well. So it's 10. So again you say this is big omega n square. Here also 6 into 2 raised to n plus n square. So you will simply ignore this n square component. You will also ignore the coefficient. What you will get is 2 raised to n, and this is true for any value of n greater than or equal to 1. So that's why we say this. Now, interestingly, you may argue that when we are computing the lower bound, then why do we ignore 2 from this rather than ignoring 3n? Are you getting? Because if I say 3n plus 2 is greater than or equal to 2 for any value of n, that is also true. Then in that case, my function of n will be a constant 1. Here also, if I ignore this n square, 4n, etc., again this will be constant. This will be constant. To understand this, you need to understand this graph. What I mean to say is that you have been given some function fn. Any function over here can be your Cgn. You have to observe this mouse cursor, right? Your chart can be anything, but anything over here, it can be your Cgn, right? But still, we always used to compute the tight upper bound. So you should try to find out that value of Gn which is as close to this as possible. So we used to compute the tightest upper bound similar to here. When you say that Cgn is greater than Fn, any value, you take any function over here, any of this, it's always going to be greater than Fn. To understand this, if I want to say that 6 is greater than 5, then I will say that I will only consider 6 as a Gn, because 7 is also greater than 5, 8 is also greater than 5, 9 is also greater than 5, infinity is also greater than 5. But I cannot say that 7 is actually considered to be a Gn for this given Fn, which is equal to 5. I hope you understood the point. My point is, you should compute the tightest upper bound when you are computing big O, and you should compute the tightest lower bound when you are computing the big omega. And that's what we have written over here, that when you given 3n plus 2, 3n plus 2 is also big omega 1, this is also big omega n, and this is also big omega 1, similar to this one. This 3n plus 5 is also big O of n square, because it's always going to be, n square is always going to be greater than 3n plus 5 for some value of c and n0. It can be also n cube as well, it can be n raised to 4, it can be anything. But the point over here is, you can't just take anything, because we are trying to compare it with some another equation. The bound should be, or the line of that function should be as close as possible. And that's why it is said a least higher value. You have to observe this. When you say big O notation, you are actually interested in higher value, but it has to be the minimum of all the possible higher values. So if you try to compare it with the numbers, I want to compute the least higher value of 5, of 6, sorry, least higher value of 5, then it has to be 6 if I consider only integer numbers. If I consider only integer numbers, then the least higher value of 5 is 6. Otherwise, 7 is also higher than 5, 8 is also higher than 5, 9, 10, anything which is can be greater than 5. But I am interested in 6 only when you are computing big O notation. Similarly, here you are interested in greatest lower value. So I want to compute the greatest lower value of 5, then it has to be 4 if I consider integer number. Otherwise, 3 is also less than 5, 2 is also less than 5. So I hope you understood this, and you should always keep this in mind when you are computing big omega notation for any given equation. Remember, whether it's big O or big omega, the highest order term will be always there in those equations. The only value will be changed is this one, C and N0. Okay. So that was the second notation, that is big omega. The third notation in the sequence is theta. So this is called the theta notation. Now, theta is basically a combination of both big O and big omega notation. What we do over here, for any given function fn, again this is not true, it should be fn is equal to theta of gn if there exists two positive constants c1 and c2 and one value of n, that is n0, such that c1 into gn is less than or equal to fn is less than or equal to c2 into gn. And this is true for every value of n greater than or equal to n0. So if you try to observe this on this graph, you have this given function fn and you want to compute theta n for that. That means you want to compute the asymptotic tight bound of that particular function. Then basically it can be represented by two other functions. One is this gn, c2 gn, and second is this one. So when you can compute this, that gives you the theta of fn. Whatever is the value of gn, that will be theta of fn. Now, how to compute this? So let's say you have this equation fn is equal to 1 by 2 n square minus 2n. Now obviously you need to put some values of c1 and c2. We'll see how, and that will again you have to observe that it's a tighter bound. So again you need to be, your highest order term will be always there, whether it's big O, big omega, or theta notation, the highest order terms will be there. So let's see how to compute theta for any fn. So The first step is obviously you need to find two constant C1 and C2. So when you just try to focus on this equation, let's say I want to compute for a 2n square. So I am interested in because there is an n square, I very much know that my Gn will always contain n square. So what I will say, C1 into Gn, that is C1 n square, is less than or equal to 2 n square is less than or equal to C2 into n square. Now I can simply remove this n square from all this mathematically. So I need to find out some value of C1 which is less than 2, less than or equal to 2, and some value of C2 which is greater than or equal to 2. For that case, this is true. Again, you come over here. So it's Fn is equal to 1 by 2 n square minus 3n. This is the same example. So it's 1 by 2 n square. We know that the function will be order of n square. So you will say C1 n square is less than or equal to 1 by 2 n square minus 3n is less than or equal to C2 n square. Again, you remove n square from all of this. So then it will become C1 is less than or equal to 1 by 2 minus 3 by n. And that means C1 is less than or equal to this and C2 is greater than or equal to this. Now, you have to mathematically compute this value of C1 and C2. How can you do that? So you have to simply, computing C1 is much more similar to what we have been doing in the big omega notation. So for any value of n greater than or equal to 1, C2 is always going to be greater than or equal to 1 by 2 because you are differentiating minus 3 by n. So that means basically you are subtracting, something from 1 by 2. So if you simply ignore that aspect, then you can say that for any value of n greater than or equal to 1, this is true. And similarly, you can compute it for C1. I know there is some maths involved in this, but that mathematical equation is straightforward. You have to simply take some values of n and then you can try to find out what should be the suitable value of C1 and C2. And you have to consider the maximum of these two again. So for this case, you will come out to be C1 is equal to 1 by 14, this is 1 by 2 and this is 7. Thankfully, you are not required to compute theta because it's relatively difficult compared to big O and big omega. Now, we have seen that big O notation is a worst case scenario. It gives you the worst case scenario. Big omega gives you the best case scenario. Obviously, theta gives you the average case scenario. So whenever you are interested in computing time complexity in a best case, then big O notation is used. Whenever we use to compute the time complexity of, for worst case, we use big O notation. For best case, we use big omega notation. And for average case, we use theta notation. Because average case time complexity can be represented by, and that's why this notation is being created. It basically gives you the tighter bound of a given function between some range of the function. Okay. Now there is one theorem actually, which is actually straightforward, but it has been asked few times in the examination. So otherwise it is self-explanatory, because if you observe the definition of these two functions, big omega and big O, then it is relatively easy to understand this theorem. What the theorem says, for any two functions fn and gn, Fn is equal to theta of Gn if and only if Fn is big O of Gn and Fn is big omega of Gn. That means if I want to say that Fn is big O of Gn, sorry, theta of Gn, then I have to prove that Fn is big O of Gn as well and Fn is big omega of Gn as well. Now, proof, I told you that it's relatively easy. You just need to see the definition of all this. Okay. Now, when I say Fn is equal to big O of Gn, when I assume this, that Fn is equal to big O of Gn, then by definition, it implies that I can find some value of constant C and some value of n, which is n0, I can say. Because this is true, I can say that this is already being achieved. So 0 is less than or equal to Fn is less than or equal to C1 into Gn. See the definition of big O. Your Fn is Cgn. I'm saying that Fn is big O of Gn, it means this is true. So I'm using the same concept over here. In our case as well, we are saying that we are assuming that Fn is equal to big O of Gn. Then by definition, this is what we can achieve. Similarly, I also say that Fn is equal to big omega of Gn. Then again by definition, this is also true. Right? So now by definition, it implies that I have some value of constant C2 and constant N0 dash for which this is true always. So 0 is less than or equal to C2 into Gn is less than or equal to Fn. This is true for two constant C2 and N0. Now, what the definition of this says, theta, it says that you have to simply find out where is F over here. So you combine these two equations. So 0 is less than or equal to Fn is less than or equal to C1 Gn. Now you put the value of or you combine these two equations, you can say that 0 is less than or equal to C2 into Gn is less than or equal to Fn is less than or equal to C1 into Gn. This is always true because you are saying that, let's say this is 5 and this is 9. So this is true. 0 is less than 5 is less than 9. Similarly, again I can replace the same over here. So basically you need to combine these two equations. When you combine these two equations, what you get is something which is this one. Obviously C1 and C2 has exchanged over there, but ultimately they are just the constant values. So it doesn't make any difference whether C1 is on left or C2 is on the right or left. So when you combine these two equations, we can easily say that we have two constants C1 and C2 and maximum of these two N0 and N0 dash. Because we have this true, because we have these constants and because we have these conditions, we can say that Fn is equal to theta of Gn. And that is actually a proof for the theorem. So I hope you understood that it is basically nothing but just putting the definition of big O and big omega into such a way that it gives us the definitions which is required for theta. So that's what we should do over here. So if in examination you have to, if it is been asked, then this is what you should remember, the definition of each of this function. Big O, big omega and big theta. Okay, so that was the third notation in the sequence. Now next two are actually somewhat similar to the previous one. So the next fourth notation is little o. Now, what do we mean by and why it is little o? The basic difference is that you see the operation over here. The comparison doesn't contains equal to. So basically, fn for a given function fn, you can say fn is equal to big O of gn if there exists positive constant cn and 0 such that 0 is less than or equal to fn is less than cgn. Now the equal to has been removed. When you removed equal to, it becomes little o. If you add equal to, it becomes big O. Right? Now what the actual difference you can see over here. N raised to 1.9999 is equal to little o of n square is true, because you can always say that this is always less than n square. But when you say n square is not equal to little o of n square, because n square is equal to n square. And when you have an equal to operation, means that this is false, and it means that this is not little o of this. So I hope you understood this. Only difference is, instead of getting upper bound, here it is strict upper bound. Strict means that it has to be beyond it. You can't have two equals. So it's always greater than the given function. It's not greater than or equal to given function. Right? So only that is different. Usually we don't use little o notation for showing the time complexity for any given function. Okay. Similarly, there is little omega, which is again strict lower bound compared to the omega. Here we have removed the equal to sign. So here now, for any given function fn, fn is considered to be little omega of gn if there exists positive constant c and n0 such that this is true. What is that? 0 is less than or equal to cgn is less than fn for every value of n greater than or equal to n0. Again, you can see the same thing. When you say n square by 2 is actually big little o of n, but 2n square is not little o of n square, because n square over here is equal to n square. So ultimately, there are actually 5 notation, but most of the time, technically or from the understanding point of view, there are only 2 notation. First is the asymptotic tight upper bound and asymptotic lower bound and asymptotic upper bound. Then you have a tight bound, which is actually a combination of both. Then you have a strict upper bound, which actually ignores the equality. And then you have strict lower bound, which actually again ignores the equality when it comes to the lower bound. So if you show it by a relationship table, then this is what we can easily correlate. So what is fn is equal to big O of gn? It is as good as a is less than or equal to b. If you take, instead of these functions, if you take it as a numbers, or if you consider it as a numbers, then this is what it similar. So fn is equal to big O of gn is similar to a is less than or equal to b. Fn is a big omega of gn is similar to a is greater than or equal to b. This is similar to equals to b. This is similar to less than, and this is similar to greater than. So I hope you understood these 5 different notations. Yes, anything which you want to ask from this? There may be number of questions in your mind, so let me ask some. Let me give you some answers to some common questions. First, what is the relationship of time complexity with this equation? Actually, the output of this equation is the time complexity. So we have been discussing time complexity. Time complexity is amount of time algorithm requires, but that is represented using these notations. So step 1 was computing step count. That gives you some equation. Step 2 is to compute the time complexity using those equations. That you can use any notations in that. It's like you are measuring your length in a meter, centimeter, millimeter, foot, etc. So similarly, here you are measuring the time complexity only, but the unit of that measurement can be big O, big omega, little omega, and theta. Now, depending on your requirement, you can use the notations. If I want to compute the worst case time complexity, then it's big O. If I want to compute the best case time complexity, then it's big omega. If I want to compute the average case time complexity, then it's theta. And little o and little omega, we never use to compute, but there exist these notations. Usually time complexity always you will find in any literature in big O, because normally we used to consider the worst case scenario. But for some algorithm, you will also find the time complexity in theta as well when you are dealing with the average case scenario. But usually we have always big O notations used. So that's all about the asymptotic notations and how to compute the time complexity. So if in case you have been asked to compute time complexity for any algorithm, then the first step you need to count the steps, and second step is to apply this definition on that equation to finally come with the asymptotic notations. And then what is the use of it? Now you have a bubble sort. So you will compute the asymptotic equations. Sorry, you compute the step count. Then you find the big omega, big O notation. It turns out to be big O of n square. Then you have quick sort. You compute the step count. You compute the big O notation of that. Then it turns out to be big O of n LGN, let's say, for example. So on one side you have big O of n square, on another side you have big O of n LGN. And then you have to compute which one is higher, n square or n LGN. Obviously n square is higher than n LGN. So it means that bubble sort requires more time compared to merge sort. It means that merge sort is a better sorting technique than bubble sort. This is how actually it goes. You have an algorithm, you compute the step count, you compute the growth function in any of these notations, and then you compare these notations value to identify which algorithm is better than the other one. Okay, so this is how the actual objective of having this particular topic in the context of algorithm analysis and design. I hope you understood that, because understanding the context is important. Notation, it's very relatively easy to understand, but the context of that is important to be understood. Any doubt till this point? Yes, anyone? Yes. Anything which you want to ask? In the next session, probably we will discuss more examples. I should not say more examples, but the questions from the exam point of view, probably. So that will give you more idea about what exactly and what kind of understanding which is required for this topic. And then after you start with one of the designing technique. Okay, so that's it for today. See you in the next class.